So this is part two of our rifle stock series. This is going to be the inletting of the rifle stock. I'm going to go through the process of inletting that barreled action into this laminate stock. You can see the stock is completely stripped. It's down, it's been sanded. It's now ready for the next step, which is going to be rifle inletting, okay? Putting the barrel action into this stock. So let's talk about this for just a moment. Inletting of the rifle stock is crucial. Okay, if you don't get the inletting right, the rifle's just not going to shoot. You've heard me say that, and that's because it's true. Inletting the rifle stock is of a wood stock, in particular laminate stock, it's difficult. There really is no fast way to do it. There's no quick and fast way to do it. Whether you use all hand tools, scrapers, whether you use a mill, whether you use a Dremel, whether you use a die grinder, does not matter. It is difficult. It's something that you have to really take your time at. It's something you really have to be patient with. And it's something that honestly, how I do it is just, I do it like a couple hours at a time, and then I get away with it and get away from it and go do something else, just because, you know, it can drive you crazy and you start getting a little weary of it. You start getting a little tired of it. You just kind of want it to be done. That's when you make a mistake. And when you're inletting a composite stock, that mistake's not a big deal, okay? Because you're going to use epoxy and whatnot. You're going to paint over it, and you can use fillers and stuff to hide that mistake. You inlet a wood or a laminate stock, and you make a mistake. That's it. You don't get it back. Okay, that mistake is permanent. You're either going to have to, if it's your rifle, you're going to have to live with it, and then live with that someone else is probably going to see your rifle with a mistake on it. And if it's the customer's rifle, you're going to have to get a new stock. All right. So there just really is no fast way to get about inletting of a rifle stock. So today I'm going to start with this. I'm going to go over on the next part here. I'm going to go over all the tools that you're going to need, and we will start inletting this. Okay. All right. So here are the various tools that I use when I'm doing my stock inletting. We're going to go over each one of them. All right. So you can use, like I say, anything, any way that you think you can get it done. All right. It's not really, it's one of them things where you're going to read, I'm going to show you one way. There's probably 4 other instructors in school that would show you different ways. This is kind of a combination of ways that I've seen and I've learned, and it just, to me, I've kind of, accepted the fact that takes a long time to do inletting, and that there's no fast way to do it. So we'll start off here with, these are my gouges, my scrapers and my gouges. Okay, chisels, if you want to call them. This is a little bit sharper one. I mainly use this stuff right here when I'm doing walnut type stocks, wood stocks, maple stocks, whatnot. Here again, I haven't done many of those stocks because that's just not the market. But when I have done that, and I do use these a little bit on the laminate, okay. But these are pretty good. It's a good set to have. It's not something that I'm telling you need to go out and get. But when you start getting into doing more inletting, it's a good set to have. Easy to keep sharp, easy to work on. Nice little case to carry them in. So there's a lot of different gouges and whatnot here. They'll come in and they'll scrape out a lot of different areas that you can't reach with, some of the other tools I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is a good set. So some scrapes, some gouges, chisels, and these are what you guys just made. This is my scraper that I made. This is my round one, and this is my square one. So I made those in school. I use them a lot. I use them, they're kind of pull scrapers. Kind of use them, this one I use when I'm having to get to the bottom of a recoil lug, and this one I use when I'm in the bottom of a barrel channel. So good tool, definitely. I'm glad you guys learned how to make them, because honestly, if you have a bunch of junk screwdrivers, you can make a bunch of these. You don't really need to go out and buy a fancy set. You can just make them, okay? So next thing you're going to use is, these are really helpful. These are some very aggressive gouges and rasps, and they get in all kinds of different funky sizes and shapes, and these will help you get into all kinds of different funky angles and stuff. Very helpful. You don't have to get these, it's just something that I've bought and I've used through the years, and it's helped me, get a little bit faster at inletting rifle stocks. A lot of guys, especially when you get in with doing composite stocks, ball end mill. Do a lot of the roughing out of your stocks on the mill. A ball end mill is critical. Good sharp ball end mill is critical. And it has to be a ball end mill because if you're doing your inletting and you have your stock in the mill, you notice that this is round. If you use a square end mill and you come through here, you're going to blow the end of that off. That's not going to be radiused, it's going to be square. So you need to have a good ball end mill if you're going to do a lot of your roughing on the mill. All right. So this is I think this is 5/8. This is a 5/8 ball end mill. So that's about what I've done most everything. It's what I did that stock with. And I might rough out some of this stock with it. So ball end mill. Some various round shapes. So you can have round rods, aluminum rods, a wooden rod, and these are helpful for getting your final shape in when you're inletting. Now this one's too big for this one, so I wouldn't use that one, but I might use it back over here when I'm doing my inletting. And these are, what you do with these is you're gonna wrap this around. This is 60 grit sandpaper. Okay, 60 grit sandpaper. Pretty versatile stuff. This is when you start using sandpaper, especially 60 grit, you're getting into the a little more advanced because you have to be careful of not rounding off edges. But it's very aggressive and it can move a lot of material quickly. So generally what I'll do is I'll take this 60 grit sandpaper and I wrap around one of these round objects, okay? So 60 grit sandpaper for your inletting. Prussian blue, non-dyeing Prussian blue. You use this for marking where your high spots are, where your low spots are. When you put this on the barrel and you get to working this in here, there'll be spots here. You take your barrel out where there'll be blue dye, the Prussian blue, and that's going to tell you that's where your barrel is rubbing against your stock. So Prussian blue is something that you need to have for that. Okay, very important when you're doing inletting. And one of the more important things that you can get, and you can make this, and I'm going to do this in class on Monday for a demo. This is a stock pin. This is I think it's a 1/4-22, I think, stock pin, because that's the thread pitch for the rear stock screw, the rear action screw, I should say, for my Mauser, okay? And why that's important is, I will show you. Why that's important is this stock screw helps you keep aligned when you're inletting, okay? The stock screw is going to help you figure out where you need to go when you're inletting. See, I've got that stock screw in there, and that basically helps me when I inlet. That keeps the action straight. That lets me know where I need to go, where I'm off. And you can see from this, I'm off mainly in my cylinder right there. Okay, my cylinder needs to be quite a bit. Not a lot, but enough. Enough to where, it's going to take a little while to do. So kind of see how that's sitting in there in that stock like that. Okay, so we're going to get to this. We're going to start inletting. Next step I'm going to do is show you how I lay out to begin inletting. And then I'm just going to film as I'm inletting. You guys can kind of pick up my tips and tricks and stuff as we go. All right? All right, guys. So something I wanted to point out that I did in the last video is that you can see the stock is sitting on my stock stand. Okay? So having a stock stand when you're doing your inletting is very important, okay? Very important thing to have. So it's going to help you keep the stock stabilized because you're going to start putting a lot of pressure on this when you're sanding it, and you don't want to, have it moving around in the vise. Having it supported by the stock stand will help with your inletting. So first thing I did, when I always do, whether it's a wood stock or a composite stock, is when obviously I get my rear action screw stock pin in, I put it in the rear action screw hole. And I hold it down right there, right at the rear. And that gets me an idea when I'm looking at this of how this is going to fit in there. Where's this going to go? Where is it rubbing? All right, is it straight in the stock? All that, that's all things that I take a look at when I do this. So this one looks pretty good. So what I do is I take a pencil, I hold this down right here, take a pencil and I start outlining. I try and put the point of the pencil right up near right up against the barrel right there. And I just outline like this. Come on the other side, do the same thing, just outline. What you're trying to do is you're trying to obviously see how much you have to remove in order to get this barrel into the stock. Okay. And the next thing I do is I have a set of dividers that I got. That you guys don't need to get this, but I do. Okay. Helps make this a little bit easier. Because what I'm trying to do with my dividers is to see where I am on the half depth point of my barrel. Okay, we're gonna get into more specifics of what half depth means a little bit later, but I'm trying to get my half depth here. My half depth is gonna help me decide on how, just verify that this is correct, okay? Because I do not wanna get past half depth, right? That's something, and we get into bedding, we'll explain even more, okay? But I take my dividers here and I put it right here in the fat part of my cylinder to see where I'm at. And then take my dividers and come up here and see about how much I gotta go compared to that line. That line is pretty correct, okay? That line looks pretty good. Those two lines on the barrel look pretty good. So if you can see this right there, I don't know if you could see that, you kind of see those pencil marks right there, okay? That's how much I have to take out to get that to fit in there. All right, so it's not a lot. It's not enough for me to put this in the mill and take out, because obviously if I take out too much, if this is a composite stock, no big deal, but this is a wood stock. So I take out too much, it's gone, it's not coming back. So not a lot to go in there. So what I'm gonna do is probably just use my, scrapers for this. I'm probably just gonna use a round dowel and some sandpaper and get that out of there. So, but this is where you really have to be careful when you're inletting, especially on a wood stock. You see there's not that much there that has to come out. However, if you take out more, it just really destroys your lines. Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep a consistent line when we're inletting all the way down the stock. It's the same, it's equal on both sides. So if someone's looking at this rifle when this is inletted in here and they look down the barrel channel, they look and the lines are consistent all the way down the side of the barrel. There's not like, not going over here and it kind of over a little bit and back, or it's rubbing against the barrel and it's pushing the barrel over to one side, or this side has a big giant gap and this side has nothing. You want it to be consistent. So this is where I'm going to take my time and really do this correctly. Really, try and get that line. You can really see that right there. That's how much it's got to come out. So it's not a whole lot. It's enough, but it's not a whole lot. All right. So, but it's enough to where if I don't pay attention to what I'm doing and I get aggressive, I will, it's my stock. I won't, ruin it. It'll be mine. But, if it's a customer, it obviously would not, be something I could give to him. Okay. So I'm gonna get to work on this. I'll set up the camera so you guys can kind of see, how I do it, and we'll go from there. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start with some 60 grit sandpaper, and I have this folded over 4 times. Okay, so paper in onto paper in, so that there's no abrasive on abrasive. And I do that because that's pretty thick when you do that, and it kind of gives me, when I bend it over like this in a radius, it gives me sort of a hard edge. All right, so if I don't have a dowel to get in here, because sometimes that's going to happen, you're not going to have dowels that fit the perfect radius to get in here. Okay, I mainly, to be honest with you, only really use the dowels that I'm doing with composites, because when I go with a composite, I can work much quicker because I know that the bedding compound is going to fill a lot of that in. So I'm not really worried too much about with my radiuses and stuff on a composite stock. But with a wood stock, I'm really taking my time. I'm really taking my time. I'm not sanding, in a particularly fast way, scraping in a particularly fast way. I'm just really taking my time, because there's, like I said, no fast way to do this. So when you use your sandpaper and you start doing inletting, something you have to pay close attention to is, again, specifically on a wood stock, is you have these hard flat edges right here. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Okay, you want that in a rifle stock. You want those nice, hard, squared edges right there. You gotta be careful when you're sanding that you don't roll those edges over. Okay, because you look down the barrel channel and there'll be, the edges here will be rolled over because you kind of sanded on the side of them. So you have to be real careful here. Here again, with wood stocks, you have to be really careful because once you start taking the stuff off, it's gone, all right? So this is what I do right here, and I do this in various shapes, you know, and we'll get through that. But I just start like this. I roll it over because this gives me a nice hard edge, and I start sanding. Now what you guys are going to be doing is you're going to be inletting and free floating your barrels into your stocks. So it's going to be awfully close to what I'm doing right here. All right. And you're just going to go right along the side of your rifle stock, just like this. Okay. And being very careful not to roll that edge over. All right. So that's basically how we're going to do this. And you come over to the other side and do the same thing. Okay. You're just going to start carefully sanding that out of there. Okay. Then once you get there, this isn't close to fitting, but this is what you're going to do. You're just going to keep checking. You sand a little bit and you'll come back and check. Sand a little bit, come back and check. Okay, so the biggest part for me is actually right in here. That's the big part for me. That's what's really holding this up right now, right there. So I'm going to focus on that area right there. I'm just going to focus on that area, and then I'll come back and we'll get the other area. Because sometimes what will happen is you'll have, when you're inletting, you'll have an area that you don't even really see that's actually putting pressure on the barrel. And you'll be sanding on this area right here, and it's actually someplace up here that's causing it not to completely get into half depth. So, and what will happen is you'll keep sanding this area right here, and then when you finally do find this spot here, when you're using your Prussian blue, you're getting down to the last part, use your Prussian blue, you'll sand this right here, and all of a sudden, boom, it'll fit in there, and then your lines will be all screwed up. So you really got to look really careful of where your high spots are. So I'm basically identifying, and how I'm looking at that is I can see right where it's rubbing right here. Okay, I got daylight right here, and I'm rubbing right there. So I'm just going to work on this area right here. All right, guys. Okay, so I want to show you guys something here real quick, all right? So that barrel, when we first started, was about twice that diameter above the stock line right there. So that's how much I've removed right there to get that in there, to get to my half depth. I am still a ways to go, but at this point right here, this is where you really have to be careful because you're getting close, okay? And you want to get it in there and you want to get this done, you know, and you really have to be careful, okay? Because this is where you can get in a hurry and mess up a line, you know, and like I say, with a composite stock, it's not that big of a deal. But with the wood stock, you really have to take your time when you're doing it, okay? So I'm pretty close. I'm getting there. I'm going to start adding my Prussian blue now because that's going to start really pointing out my high spots and whatnot. But we're getting pretty close. So that's where we're at right there, all right? Okay. Okay, so we're getting closer and closer. You can see now I'm really getting close. I'm about maybe a quarter of an inch or so from getting down to half depth. And you can see that I've got my Prussian blue on. And what this is doing is now since we're getting so close, this is marking all the high spots. This is getting me really down to where I'm down kind of like right in here. So I'm getting fewer marks back here and more of the marks up and through here. So that's letting me, get that barrel channel opened up in a nice, straight line. Lines are all looking really good. It's looking pretty good. So we're getting there. This is kind of the next step. When you get down to like the last part, when you're sitting there that close, you can kind of see as I get it back how close I'm getting to having it down there. This is when you got to start applying your Prussian blue. Okay, because what'll happen is if you don't do that and put your Prussian blue on there, what'll happen is you'll be sanding on some area that has nothing to do with it. And that'll start, and you'll sit there trying to figure out why this is not going in, when it's actually probably a spot up there, which is what's happening to me right now. So when we got into the video earlier, I was saying this area right here is what I was going to focus on. Well, now I'm not really getting that much contact back there. Now I'm starting to get contact right there. Okay, so we're getting pretty close. I'm going to keep filming and keep putting this Prussian blue on, and hopefully in the next, I don't know, hour, I'll probably have this. Okay? All right, let's get going. Okay, so this is done. This is inletted. So this barreled action now, my Mauser 98 9.3 by 62 is now in this stock. As you can tell from looking at it, you can see where we're at. We're half depth. Okay, we're going to get into the importance of half depth a little bit later in the semester, but this is basically what you want. You want to see when you're totally inletted that your barrel is at the halfway mark, okay, of the stock right here. That's a good indication that everything is correct. On some other things like your Remingtons and whatnot, the serial number sitting just slightly above where your stock is. On this Mauser right here, your safety slot level with the top of the stock right there. Those are all indications that I am now half depth, okay? And that the stock is inletted. You can see my lines right here from the last photo, okay? So I'm floated down the sides, I got clearance, and we're getting ready to go, okay? So things are moving along pretty good. This is what it should look like when you're done. I gotta be honest, this took a while. I'm not sure how long this video is right now because I haven't cut it and put it together. But this takes some time to get done, okay? This took me at least 2 hours to do. Now with a composite stock, it's not so much. You don't gotta worry about it so much. But with a wood stock, you really gotta take your time, okay? Because once that wood's gone and you make a mistake, it's not coming back, all right? So these are basically all the tools that I used to do this. I had my mallet, my Prussian blue, my dividers. Here's the end of a barrel, I think. I'm not sure which barrel that was, but that I use as, you know, a hard surface. You saw me wrapping my aggressive sandpaper, my 60 grit sandpaper around these radiuses and stuff. And I use that for getting into keeping my barrel channel consistent. My stock scraper that I made in school, my Prussian blue, various sandpapers, my door just closed, my stock pin, a Sharpie for trying to, you know, keeping track of where I was at. So yeah, this is basically it. This is what you're going to do when you inlet. And my aggressive rasp, okay, that's what I use. My aggressive rasp for a lot of the stuff. I used all these tools right here in order to get that into the stock, okay? So I'd like to tell you that there's a fast way of doing this. There isn't. There's not a fast way when you're inletting a wood stock, okay? There just isn't. You just have to take your time, okay? When you get into composite stocks like this one, yeah, it's not near as bad, but for these stocks like this, these laminate and these wood stocks, walnut stocks, it just takes a while. So this was I'm gonna shape this stock next. There's a lot of things I'm gonna do to this stock. I'm gonna take this cheek rest off. You know, I got all these square edges I'm gonna round off. My magazine thumb notch right there, I'm gonna round out. My bolt slot on the other side, I'm gonna do. My ejection port, I'm gonna round these bottoms off. I'm gonna round this off here. I'm gonna make this more round instead of squared like it is. So a lot of stuff I'm gonna do this stock, but you really can't do any of that until you get it inletted. Okay, because you need to know where everything sits. You need to know how you're gonna shape your stock, okay? So you gotta make sure you got enough meat and whatnot when you're doing this. So that'll be the next project that I do. The next video is gonna be me shaping this, doing all the various things I'm gonna do to it. The inlay I'm gonna do up near the forend, I'm gonna do all that. And that'll be the next video, that'll be part 3. And otherwise, everything's going good, guys. I hope you're doing good in school. Don't fall behind. You can see, you know, this took, like I said, it took me about 3 hours. The video is probably gonna be 15 minutes, but it took me 3 hours to do this. So, you know, it's something you wanna, take your time on and do correctly. All right, guys, way to go.